I'd like to welcome you all to our travel edition of the Lunch Club once again, where for the month of September, we're looking at the different oceans in the world as they've been designated. Last week, we looked at the Arctic and Southern Ocean, the fifth and fourth largest oceans, or the two smallest oceans in the world. And now we're looking at the third largest ocean, the Indian Ocean. Thank you, Lou, so much for hosting, and please take it away.
Great. Yeah, I'd be curious before we start. Has anybody here been to the Indian Ocean? Anybody?
I've never, so I'm looking forward to learning a lot.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been to the Indian Ocean either. So let's figure this out together.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So let's get this thing started. Lou, you there?
Do I have control?
No,
Oh,
but
you want me
for
to?
the host,
Okay.
right?
Sorry. I was waiting for you to play it. The Indian Ocean is the champion of oceans. I never heard that before. Well, let's learn why. Alex?
Hello everyone, you're watching the Planet Earth channel, and today we're going to talk about the Indian Ocean. What do we know about it? Probably that it's located next to India, and that's true, that the island of Madagascar lies in its waters. By the way, the fourth largest island in the world. Many have heard that not so long ago the most destructive tsunami occurred there, and you'd be right about that too. And many have heard of the beautiful Maldives, and some have even been there. And yes, that's also the Indian Ocean. So not that much information really, so let's find out more about this amazing and massive feature on Planet Earth. Together, let's go. The Indian Ocean, the most of the most. It contains the largest bay in the world, the Bay of Bengal, the largest peninsula on the planet, the Arabian Peninsula, the longest strait in the world, the Mozambique Channel, 1,760 kilometers long, the saltiest sea in the world, the Red Sea, salinity 42 parts.
There you go, Lou. 42.
Oh, the Red Sea. Oh, interesting. But see, it's the
Parts
same
per
as the
thousand.
Mediterranean. It's cut off.
The Republic of Madagascar is the largest country in the world that occupies a single island, and Java Island is the most populated island on the planet. The Indian Ocean ranks third in size, 76.17 million square kilometers, and covers about 20% of Earth's water surface. The area of the Indian Ocean is 10 times larger than the area of all of Australia, and if you like comparisons, the Indian Ocean is big enough to fit 5 Russias, or 8 USAs, or the same number of Chinas, or Canadas, or 575 Greeces, or 1,840 Switzerlands. Its volume is approximately 12,000 times greater than the volume of Lake Baikal, the largest freshwater body on Earth. Between the southern points of Australia and Africa, the width of the Indian Ocean reaches about 10,000 kilometers. This ocean washes the shores of 4 continents, all except North and South America. It is located entirely in the Eastern Hemisphere, and most of it lies south of the equator, meaning in the Southern Hemisphere. The conventional boundary between the Indian and Atlantic Oceans runs along the 20th meridian, which goes from Cape Agulhas to the Antarctic coast, while the boundary with the Pacific Ocean follows the 147th meridian, linking Tasmania with Antarctica. By the way, a quick note, a meridian is a line formed by slicing the surface of the Earth with a plane that passes through any point on the Earth's surface and the axis of Earth's rotation. There are only 10 marginal seas in the Indian Ocean. Of these, only one is inland, the Red Sea. There are sizable gulfs, the Bay of Bengal and the Great Australian Bight, and these gulfs are so vast that their area rivals that of entire seas. Many people know that the Red Sea is the saltiest sea in the world. Let's not count the Dead Sea, which strictly speaking is not a sea but a landlocked lake. The Red Sea, into which not a single river flows, would have dried up if it weren't replenished by the waters of the Indian Ocean. The waters of the Indian Ocean wash the shores of 39 independent countries and dependent territories of France and the UK. The ocean includes continental islands, Madagascar and Sri Lanka. Some islands are peaks of underwater volcanoes, such as Kerguelen, Réunion, and Mauritius. In the equatorial and tropical zones of the ocean, there are many coral islands, the Laccadive, Cocos, and Andaman Islands, and of course the Maldives, which are also coral islands. The Indian Ocean got its name from India, and India in turn got its name from the Iranians or Persians. The ancient Greeks called it the Erythraean Sea. Primitive humans were crossing the Indian Ocean 40 to 50,000 years ago. Apparently, that's how the first settlers reached Australia from Asia. The shores of the Indian Indian Ocean are home to the settlement areas of some of the oldest peoples and earliest river civilizations. For example, Mesopotamia in the valleys of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers on the territory of modern Iraq, and the Harappan civilization on the banks of the Indus River. In the late 13th century, the Venetian traveler Marco Polo, on his way back from China, traveled across the Indian Ocean from the Strait
Marco Polo. That brings back memories.
of Malacca to the Strait of Hormuz. Marco Polo became the first European to cross it. In the late 15th century, a Portuguese expedition led by Vasco da Gama entered the waters of the Indian Ocean off the East African coast.
Can you believe that route? Someone 500, 600 years ago doing that? That's amazing. Look at this map.
The expedition crossed the Indian Ocean and reached the Indian subcontinent or the shores of India. Thus, the sea route to India was opened. In 1642, Dutch navigator Abel Tasman explored the central part of the Indian Ocean. In 1772, British navigator James Cook entered the southern Indian Ocean and approached the western coast of Australia. The Indian Ocean is relatively young, much younger than many of the mountains on our planet. Scientists have established that it formed about 120 to 140 million years ago, when the supercontinent Gondwana split apart, and its pieces, which became individual continents, began to drift in different directions. The bottom relief of the Indian Ocean is complex and diverse. This is due to the location of the ocean at the junction of three major lithospheric plates, the African, Indo-Australian, and Antarctic. Mid-ocean ridges pass through the ocean basin along the boundaries of these plates. These parts of the ocean are characterized by seismic activity and volcanism, as well as the presence of rift zones and transformed faults. Between the ridges lie deep sea basins. The maximum depth of the Indian Ocean is recorded in the Sunda Trench, 7,729 meters. This trench, located on the boundary of the Indian and Pacific Oceans, is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire and therefore a zone of active earthquakes and underwater volcanism. The temperature regime of the Indian Ocean has some peculiarities. In the northern part of the basin, two seasons are observed: a warm, dry, sunny winter and a hot, cloudy, rainy, stormy summer. Such seasonality depends on the influence of monsoons. High temperatures are typical for seas surrounded by hot deserts, for example, in the Red Sea, up to 34 degrees Celsius, in the Persian Gulf, up to 35.6 degrees Celsius. However, the average surface temperature of the Indian Ocean is lower than that of the Pacific Ocean and amounts to plus 17 degrees Celsius. The lower temperature is due to the strong cooling effect of Antarctic waters. On the other hand, the northern part of the ocean is the warmest, as it is.
Yeah, we learned about that current that goes around the Antarctic. So that was, hope you guys are seeing the connection.
Well heated and lacks an inflow of cold waters. Currents in the Indian Ocean have a special character. Monsoons have the greatest influence on the currents of the northern part of the Indian Ocean. The wind changes the direction of surface water movement depending on the season. The northern part of the Indian Ocean is the only region of the world ocean with such a clear seasonal change of currents. The most powerful current on our planet, the west wind drift, passes through the ocean basin. The speed of the current depends on wind strength and varies by season. The maximum speed, 20 to 30 miles per day, is observed near Kerguelen Island. The Indian Ocean is also famous for its tides. The height of tides in some of its areas breaks all records. On average, it is just a couple or 3 meters, but near the coast of India, near Mumbai, it can reach 5 to 6 meters, and near Australia, near the city of Darwin, even 7 to 8 meters. In the Indian Ocean grow brown algae, the longest in the world. However, they can be found in many places, and they are abundant in the Sargasso Sea, which is located in the Atlantic Ocean. But we will talk about that when we look at the Atlantic Ocean. In the Indian Ocean, near Mauritius, there is a unique underwater waterfall. More precisely, it would be better to call it a sandfall, as it consists of sand that streams down the slope of an underwater mountain. It looks absolutely incredible. The underwater world of the Indian Ocean is fascinating, diverse, and bright. Its warm waters abound with a large number of exotic plants and animals, which allows the third largest ocean to be called the most populated water space. In the waters of the Indian Ocean, among the incredibly beautiful coral structures, lives a huge number of brightly colored fish.
Wow. Look at that.
Sponges, mollusks, crustaceans, crabs. Coral structures lives a huge number of brightly colored fish, sponges, mollusks, crustaceans, crabs, worms, starfish, urchins, turtles, glowing anchovies, and sailfish. Dangerous species for humans are also found here: octopuses, jellyfish, poisonous sea snakes, and sharks. It is the Indian Ocean that accounts for the largest number of shark attacks on humans. However, this still happens extremely rarely, only a few cases a year. So dear subscribers, please don't increase this statistic if you happen to swim in the waters of the Indian Ocean. In mangrove thickets lives the mud skipper, a fish that can spend a long time on land thanks to its special body structure. In the coastal waters you can find sardinellas, mullets, jacks, sea catfish. In the southern southern part live icefish, white-blooded fish. In the tropical zones, you can encounter rare and unusual members of the siren family, dugongs, and of course dolphins and whales. The largest ray, the manta ray, is also found in the Indian Ocean. Among birds, the most common are frigate birds and albatrosses. Among the endemics, the paradise flycatcher and the white-throated rail. On the southern coast of Africa and in Antarctica live penguins. Sometimes
Africa has penguins.
Witnesses have observed very strange phenomena on the ocean's surface, glowing circles. This phenomenon has not yet been properly studied, but most likely it is caused by colonies of bioluminescent microorganisms which have made the Indian Ocean their home. Did you know that scientists have discovered the birth of a new continent in the Indian Ocean? French and Australian geologists studied the composition of rocks in the southern part of the Indian Ocean and found that a new continent is forming there. Scientists conducted research on the Kerguelen Islands, which are located in the Indian Ocean not far from Antarctica. They show that granitic magma, continental crust, can form not only in subduction zones, but also in the middle of the ocean. This presumably is how continents are born. The authors proposed a hypothesis that the syenite massif of Kerguelen Island is, in essence, a continent embryo, which in millions of years will become a full-fledged landmass, and all we can do now is wait a bit. From the interesting facts about the Indian Ocean, an asteroid that killed the dinosaurs was found in the Indian Ocean. A huge mysterious basin, located near modern-day India, may be the largest crater in the history of our planet, formed by the collision of a large asteroid with Earth. A major meteorite fell into the Indian Ocean. Scientists from the University of Texas say that if their research is correct, this crater formed about 65 million years ago, and it may have caused a climate shift and dinosaur extinction, rather than the Chicxulub crater on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. Today, the standard theory of dinosaur extinction is climate change caused by an asteroid hitting modern Mexico, but it turns out the dinosaurs were hit twice. Numerous transport routes pass through the Indian Ocean, but many are transit routes, beginning and ending outside the ocean itself. Shipping lanes in the Indian Ocean connect Europe and North America with the Middle East, Central and Far East, as well as Southeast Asia with Australia. In terms of shipping development, the Indian Ocean lags behind the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, but it exceeds them in oil transport volumes, as the Persian Gulf is the world's main oil exporting region. Here is where the main flow of oil and petroleum products is concentrated, and this is the main environmental problem of the ocean. One of the main pollutants of the Indian Ocean is oil. It gets into the water due to accidents on coastal oil rigs and shipwrecks. In the Indian Ocean, more than in any other, rogue waves, also called killer waves or caprolas, are recorded. These are huge solitary waves, reaching heights of 15 to 20 meters. The highest chance of encountering them is near the coasts of Africa, in the western part of the ocean. It is reliably known that in June 1968, the American supertanker World Glory was sunk by a caprola, which broke it in two. The ship went to the bottom, taking 22 lives, and 49,000 tons of crude oil spilled into the sea. Everyone's heard stories about the Bermuda Triangle, but few know there is a similar area in the Indian Ocean, often called the Death Pocket. No anomalies have been discovered there, but many ships disappeared, and some were later found adrift without crews. Submarines and aircraft have also gone missing in the Death Pocket. Maybe it's pirates, maybe the Flying Dutchman, or maybe you have your own theory that no one else knows. But the fact remains that in 2004, an earthquake of magnitude 9.3 occurred in the Indian Ocean. Its death toll was about 300,000 people, with most victims perishing due to the tsunami triggered by the quake. To this day, it remains the most destructive tsunami in recorded history. And has anyone heard of black smokers and white smokers? But don't get the wrong idea. It's not what it sounds like. In rift valleys of the Red Sea, hydrothermal fields have been discovered. Here, seawater descends through cracks to great depths, heats up to more than 400 degrees Celsius, and becomes saturated with metal-bearing sediments containing iron and copper. Then, the water rises back up and seeps into the cold bottom waters, forming the so-called black smokers. And if the temperature is below 300 degrees Celsius, white smokers are formed. The mighty Indian Ocean truly boggles the imagination. This vast expanse of water stretching from horizon to horizon long frightened even the boldest sailors. Its depths are still not fully explored, and there's every reason to believe that many secrets remain hidden in its waters. But science does not stand still, and our knowledge grows year after year, or from episode to episode, just like it does for our subscribers. And that's all for today. Subscribe, like, and share this video with your friends.
There was a fact there, there was a fact there, there was a fact everywhere. My goodness, dinosaurs and Marco Polo and, history. Any thoughts on the video? What did you react to most?
Well, I did some side research on some things. I had never heard about this crater off India killing the dinosaurs, so I went on Google. What it says was that crater was not caused by an asteroid strike off of India, Rather, it was created when the Chicxulub, the asteroid hit Mexico, sent shock waves around the planet, and there was a convergence on the opposite side of the planet that triggered volcanic activity. Those are all the research on Google says that's volcanic activity that contributed to the extinction of the dinosaurs. But the actual asteroid impact was the one in Mexico. And that corresponds with all the Discovery channels I've seen over the years of this shock quartz that came that covers the whole planet. It was only formed by an asteroid strike. And the shock quartz is traceable back to this Chicxulub crater, where the layer of shock quartz is the thickest. You can actually map it by the thickness of these shock quartz layers around the Earth. So I think that thing is a little bit off in its facts. All right, that was a
Yeah,
long time.
it's still debated. I see here. So it's that was millions of years ago. So it's yeah, there's still more to learn. Maybe when they deep more into even more into the Indian Ocean, you'll get even more information.
Yeah. And then one other fact I researched is the warmth of the Red Sea. I thought it was fascinating that no river flows into the Red Sea. I mean, I guess it's not surprising. It's all desert. And that makes sense why it's so much salt. But then I checked into the temperature of the Red Sea, and the maximum temperature of the Red Sea is about 94 degrees, and that's in the summer. And guess what other body's maximum temperature is 94 degrees in the summer? Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf is also 94 degrees.
Well, look at that connection right there. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting. Thanks so much for sharing, Lou. Any other seniors, any thoughts on the video? Any facts that were interesting?
Oh, well, Lou and Alex, they mentioned the Bermuda Triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that's where some ships and planes have mysteriously disappeared. Now, is that in the region of the Indian Ocean?
In the video, they just mentioned it because it's similar to the dead zone or dead spot they mentioned in the video. So no, I don't think the Bermuda Triangle is in that region. I forgot. Yeah, it's in the North Atlantic, but they compared it so that they could talk about the dead spot in the Indian Ocean where.
Oh, I see. Uh-huh.
But
so that's. Mm-hmm.
But you know what? That Malaysian air flight vanished over the Indian Ocean. Remember that flight about 5 years ago? The 777 that just disappeared over the all people vanished. And that was over the Indian Ocean. Y'all remember that? That was a very big deal.
I don't remember that, but 777 people perished.
No, it was a Boeing 777. Yeah, a big wide body, and it just vanished.
Oh, I see. Uh-huh. Wow.
Yeah, some folks got to remember that because that was a very big deal.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was March of 2014.
Oh,
yeah,
10 years. Wow, yeah.
Looking at it, yeah.
Do y'all remember that? The pilot made a left turn and then it was going from, I think it was going from Australia to China, and then it was going from Indonesia to China, and then all of a sudden he makes this left turn, and then the transponder is turned off, and then all of a sudden, but then he's still tracking and he's heading over the Indian Ocean, and then they never found the plane. All the passengers are presumed dead.
Yeah. It came from Kuala Lumpur going to Beijing.
239 people on board.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest mystery of aviation. Period.
I mean, Amelia Earhart, flying, there's so many, you gotta, those people are brave riding those planes.
Yeah, they found no wreckage or anything.
Right. But this is like the most recent.
But that's probably the biggest mystery in aviation when you think about it.
Yeah.
That many people to have vanished, because even the Bermuda Triangle, it was just maybe a few dozen here and there. Of course, that's terrible itself, but nothing like 200 and some odd people, and nothing like the size of a 777 just vanishing.
Right.
Yeah.
And think of the families, they've never gotten any closure.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. Well, good research.
What I got was the new continent that's forming.
What?
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Uh-huh.
They're off in millions of years. The planet may look like Pangea again. It will look very different than it does today.
Where I missed that. Where is this continent forming?
In the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
Like right in the middle of it?
I don't know where they said it was.
I would definitely check it out. Luke, can you introduce this next video so we can learn more?
Yes, absolutely. Well, what exactly is the Indian Ocean Dipole? Maybe that's what this continent is. Let's learn about this, Alex.
It's something else, but we'll learn. We'll see what it is.
The Indian Ocean Dipole, or IOD for short, is a natural and irregular change in sea temperatures across the Indian Ocean. If you think you've seen something like this before, you'd be right. It's very similar to the El Nino-La Nina cycle in the Pacific Ocean. In fact, the two are linked, and the IOD can be seen as an extension of, or even a phase of, the El Nino phenomenon. And just like El Nino, the IOD plays a big part in altering weather patterns right around the globe. The IOD changes year to year between three states: positive, negative, and neutral. Each state has different effects on weather patterns, and each year the intensity, or just how positive or how negative the IOD is, also varies. Many years the IOD will simply remain neutral throughout. Generally speaking, the closer a country is to the Indian Ocean, then the stronger the link between the weather patterns and the IOD. The Indian Ocean Dipole is a relatively recent discovery. Scientists have only known about it since 1999, but climatologists have been able to map the pattern back in time due to sea surface temperature observations throughout the decades. Okay, let's look at the phases now and start when the IOD is positive. A positive IOD is when the temperature of the sea on the western side of the Indian Ocean is higher than average. Now, this occurs when the winds at the surface across the Indian Ocean become more easterly, bringing warmer waters to the west. The higher temperatures over the ocean creates warmer air above the surface. That warmer air rises, that lowers the pressure at the surface, and the combination of low pressure and rising warm air generates more rain in this part of the world. Now, it's not just here that's impacted, the whole ocean is, and as well as warming of the waters on the western side, an upwelling of cooler waters on the eastern side of the ocean is created at the same time. And the cooler waters here means that the air doesn't rise as much. Pressure is higher at the surface, and rainfall is reduced, and droughts can occur. So when the IOD is positive, it usually creates flooding in Eastern Africa and drought in Indonesia and Australia. A positive IOD also leads to an increase in rainfall during the southwest monsoon season across the Indian subcontinent. Now let's look at what happens when we get a negative IOD. A negative phase in the IOD occurs when westerly winds at the surface are stronger than normal across the ocean, and this results in pushing of the warmer waters to the eastern side of the ocean, and the temperatures in the western Indian Ocean being lower than average. The warming here creates more rainfall in the same way it does on the other side of the ocean when the IOD is positive, and the pattern is totally reversed. During a negative phase, rainfall is increased here, but cooler waters on the western side of the ocean means that rainfall is decreased here. So when the IOD is negative, it can lead to flooding in Indonesia and parts of Australia and lead to droughts in Eastern Africa. It can also lead to a reduction in rainfall during the southwest monsoon season across the Indian subcontinent. Now, in a neutral phase, the sea surface temperatures are around average, and the IOD has no impact on weather patterns. In the Northern Hemisphere autumn of 2019, the IOD was extremely positive, the highest ever recorded, in fact.
Take a look at that. Real high 2019, 2020.
This record-breaking IOD had huge impacts on the weather patterns across many countries. The resulting drought in Australia led to one of the most severe fire seasons on record. And meanwhile, in Africa, the excess rainfall created devastating floods, and the warming seas are also thought to have contributed to a severe locust season here. A recent study suggests that climate change is expected to increase the frequency of these extreme positive IOD years. Now, although the impacts of the IOD are felt more keenly across countries adjacent to the Indian Ocean, just like El Nino, the IOD can affect weather right around the globe. So, does the IOD affect UK weather? Well, actually, the Indian Ocean dipole is just one of many global climate features that affect our weather here in the UK, and we call these our climate drivers. And the teleconnections between them are a really intense area of ongoing scientific research. One connection suggests that a positive IOD can lead to a positive North Atlantic Oscillation in late winter. The North Atlantic Oscillation, or NAO, determines how much influence the Atlantic has on our weather. When the NAO is positive, this means westerly winds are more likely across the UK, and the weather is generally wetter and windier with a more active jet stream. Although other factors were undoubtedly also at play, this is what was observed in early 2020, with February seeing a number of intense low-pressure systems crossing the country, resulting in the wettest February ever recorded and the 5th wettest month ever recorded across the UK.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a science lesson today with this. Any thoughts? I love it. One part of the world definitely can and will affect another part of the world, even if you don't think about it. Anyone's heard of IOD before?
No.
It sort of makes sense if you think about it. If the wind is blowing the water towards one side, then the weight of the water would push down, and then cold water would come up from the bottom on the other side. I mean, that sort of makes sense.
Yeah, right before COVID, the drought and the drought in Africa and the heavy rains in India, and the drought contributed to the locusts and the population. That's
I remember the fires in Australia. That was a big deal.
So yeah, here you go. Positive IOD, flooding in East Africa, drier Indonesia and Australia, and there's more likely of a chance of monsoonal rain.
I don't remember the flooding in Africa, but no one was going there because we were all shut down with COVID then.
No, it said Sudan. So Sudan, early 2020 flooding. Yeah, 2020 Sudan floods, severe record-breaking event caused by unusually rainy season overflowing. The Nile River overflowed.
What?
Yeah.
Unusually overflowing Nile River tribute. Interesting. What
Mm.
does it? What does it say? Was there flooding in Kenya during that time? Does it say anything about Kenya?
No, this is just about Sudan right here. But it affected more than 3 million people, more than 100 people dead, more than 100,000 homes destroyed. So it affected all over Sudan. That's so sad. 3-month national state of emergency. Okay. Remember they mentioned in the first video the tsunami?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
2004. So
yeah, I was actually involved in that. I was working for the Red Cross then. I was deploying people to Banda Aceh, Indonesia. Crazy tsunamis there. Hey, I just pulled this up. The 2020 East Africa floods were a natural disaster in Rwanda, Kenya, Somalia, Burundi, Ethiopia, Uganda, and the Congo.
Yeah, all of East Africa.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know about that. I guess we didn't know about anything going on there during that COVID period. All right. Go ahead, Alex.
What's this one, Lou?
Oh, sorry, I was looking at Google. 20 years later, the world honors oh my gosh, the victims of the 24. Yeah, there's some incredible videos here.
It was the day after Christmas 2004, and resorts here in Thailand were busy with tourists.
It was a beautiful day. We had gone kayaking that morning.
We walked up to the beach, and it was a few steps up, about 6 steps. By then, disaster had struck across the Indian Ocean. A magnitude 9.2 earthquake under the sea near Banda Aceh, Indonesia, lasting 10 unrelenting minutes. The power of it felt hundreds of miles away in Khao Lak.
There are hotels and resorts all along here, and people were doing what they do. They were at the beach or the swimming pool, unaware of what was going to happen.
First, the ocean pulled back from the shore, revealing the seabed. Then, a mountain of waves came crashing in. Captured on video by people who made it to higher ground.
Hey.
2 American survivors vacationing at different resorts in Thailand that day can still recall every detail. It was squeezing me, and I can't quite describe it. I heard after that the water was traveling 250 to 500 miles an hour.
My body was being crushed and contorted. My right hand was essentially amputated. I mean, it was just an unbelievable moment to realize this is happening to you and that you're going to die instantly.
Wave after wave, at times higher than 100 feet, demolished coastal areas in 14 countries. Within hours, an estimated 230,000 lives were lost, from Indonesia to Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand.
I was calling out for my good friend, Ben Abels, and I didn't hear anybody's voice. Everything was silent.
Abels from Chicago didn't survive. 20 years on, life around Khao Lak has in many ways recovered. And a shelter set up in the tsunami's wake for orphan children is now a permanent home for kids in need. This is a place that has given me everything, says Watana Satirachot, who was 12 years old when the tsunami changed the course of his life. Now with 2 college degrees, Watana is running the orphanage where he grew up, raising 93 kids with help from donations and fundraising. I remember the goodness, he says, of the past. I always tell the children, if the tsunami didn't happen, we wouldn't have this home to stay together. The worst tsunami in recorded history. Survival brought unexpected second chances.
I was 34 years old. I mean, I had a life to live, and I did not want to be disabled in any way. I'm an avid skier. I'm the mother of 3 teenagers. I've had a wonderful life.
I think one of the biggest things is to not blame yourself. If you have that survivor's guilt, you've got to let it go. You truly were allowed to survive for a reason. Here, every December, volunteers gather at the cemetery for tsunami victims who were never identified. They sweep, clean, and remember the day the water changed everything. Janice Mackey-Freyer, NBC News, Khao Lak, Thailand.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated.
What a video, right?
Yeah, terrible.
You know, there was a movie made about that tsunami. It's called The Impossible.
Oh yeah, I think I heard of that before.
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing that. It was about a family, right? They were
Right.
separated.
Yeah.
That was a good movie.
But seeing that actual footage, like those people were actually take those videos, and we saw what happened 20 years ago. This was last year, his video. So it's been 21 years.
Yeah, I remember that really well. That was a Terrible event.
But it's good. They made good come out of it. The guy said if the tsunami never happened, we wouldn't have a place to call home. That was something.
I remember I recently gotten a job at the national headquarters of the Red Cross when I got the job in 2004, and
Right when it happened.
think of all the stuff that happened, and then so we had five hurricanes hit the United States in 2004. Then we had this event, and we were flying people across the country to Banda Aceh and various places to respond to all the needs. And then Hurricane Katrina hit the summer of 2005, and that was just totally off the chart from a response standpoint. So yeah, that was crazy.
Wow.
I know it's amazing.
Yeah, I barely got out of New Orleans before Katrina hit.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Or were you down there?
Oh my God, was that the scariest thing? That the planes weren't leaving, the train wasn't moving. So we jumped in the car and we drove all the way here.
Really? I didn't know you were down there. That's quite a story.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Anne's told us quite a bit. So I know wow,
And where were you in Katrina? Were you in New
I
Orleans?
was in New Orleans. I was on actually was in Slidell.
Oh, you were in Slidell. I was deployed to Slidell.
Were you?
Yeah.
That's
I
where
know.
my cousin lives. And then I was down near where the beach was.
Okay. What beach? The Mississippi? Or?
Oh shoot, the beach. Oh Lord, what's the name of that beach? Shit.
Well, you know, Katrina just had its.
I was near the beach in Biloxi. I had been over in Biloxi. We had been crabbing and shrimping.
Oh, I gotta tell this story, Alex. Hold on. We all know that Katrina just had its 20th anniversary,
right?
A few days ago, and so I was stationed at the CB base in Biloxi.
Were you?
Yeah, I was working on the CB base, and I worked the Mississippi coast and the Louisiana coast. I never saw anything like that because I got in before anybody else. People were allowed to go in, and there were wallets and all these valuables just floating in the seawater, and the whole contents of houses and Walmarts and everything was just all over everywhere. And people's valuables were like piled up as mountains, and the bodies, the smell of death was just unbelievable. I mean, it stunk like rotting flesh. The whole Mississippi coast going all the way into Slidell, and what was really weird is that when night fell, it was you had to get out before night fell, because all the criminal element came up and they were picking that stuff clean. They didn't talk about that. Like in Bay St. Louis and what was the other city? Forgetting it. They had the record storm surge. It was 29 feet. And the contents of the city was a mountain of trash. And people would just come out of the woodwork, just picking the place clean. It was the weirdest thing.
But a helicopter took my uncle off the top of their house.
Oh wow! Where was he?
He was Boulevard on the I don't know if he was on the Boulevard address or I think he was over there off of St. Bernard Street.
Oh wow!
And it was crazy. It was crazy. And when we went back, my uncle that lived in outside of New Orleans, I can't even think of where the name of that street is now. It was such a terrible experience. But Jackie and I went back to clean her parents' house out. And there was a boat in the living room.
Crazy.
And a car on top of the garage. On top of the car that was in the garage, there was a car on top of it.
Did your uncle know anybody who died? I think 1,800 people died in New Orleans. Did he
Yeah,
know
we
anybody?
lost some relatives. We lost a lot of friends, a lot of older friends that were older people, like my mother and my grandmother.
What?
Yeah.
You lost your mother?
No, my mother was here.
Okay.
No, she had been there because my uncle was sick. And she had been there, and she had left the week before, and I had gone to Biloxi, and I come back, and they had said, but the crazy thing is that I got taken out of a boat down in the 9th Ward when Hazel came through.
Oh my gosh.
When I was a little girl, so I was not excited about being in Katrina.
We understand. We appreciate you sharing, Ann. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Alex, we should have like a Hurricane Katrina remembrance episode at some point. Because there's some stories in this group.
Well, there's some stories you got too. You were an outsider, and so it was devastating to you. So imagine the people who have lived
oh my
their
God.
life and worked all their lives and saw their homes go down in the water.
I still get like the shivers a little bit when the name Katrina is spoken. You know, like a shake. You know, it's weird. And you're right. I can't even imagine the people who lost relatives. And I went to the Superdome, and you know what happened over there, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah. Just imagine if you lost somebody or lived through that. Oh my gosh.
Well, God bless you for being one of the people that was helping to save people. I give you kudos, and I will always remember that you were one of the people that was helping to save some of my people.
Oh, thanks for that, Anna. Yeah, right now I even have tears in my eyes.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. Hey, Lou, do you mind introducing this video?
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
You only have
China's
10 minutes left. Thank
power
you so
play.
much.
Oh, wow, we've got to learn about this. Absolutely,
Yeah,
China's
just
power
a
play.
few minutes of this. This was June 5th, 2025. So we're gonna watch a little bit of this.
If you open a map that tracks ships, zoom in on the Indian Ocean, then turn on live tracking, the vital arteries of global commerce become obvious.
Without access to it, trade between Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia would basically grind to a halt.
These are the choke points, the critical passages that fuel the world economy. For India, they're non-negotiable, carrying almost all its trade and energy.
Since the Indian Ocean is named after India, it is quite integral to India's worldview.
But it's also important to another giant. China is pouring billions into ports, infrastructure, and naval expansion. And that has India alarmed.
China is not violating any international rules, and China is not infringing upon India's interests. Therefore, they have to change the mentality.
What were once obscure specks in the vast Indian Ocean are now the silent targets in a looming struggle, one that could choke global trade and tilt the balance of power.
There's increased competition between the US and China, between China and India as well, vying for influence within that.
President Donald Trump's shift in foreign policy has cast uncertainty on the US's role in the region.
I will put America first.
And opened doors for China. At the center of it all are tiny countries like Mauritius, which find themselves courted by powers that might once have overlooked them.
Mauritius is known for its beautiful white sand beaches, the lagoon, the great five-star hotels, and the hospitality of Mauritius. But it's more than that. Mauritius controls 2.3 million kilometers of economic exclusive zone in the Indian Ocean. It sits in the middle of the maritime trade, so it shows how strategic, important Mauritius
economic zone
is.
Its heat sweetens those sugar canes on which the island's economy depends.
When I was born, the country was living off sugarcane plantation. We saw a kind of a surge of interest from the early 2000s from China. It shifted from China to India, leveraging on the fact that Mauritius is also known as Little India or Chota Bharat, as we say. And these countries do help us, be it China, be it India. So it's helping the country to prosper.
But just beyond these pristine shores, military bases. On the Agalega Islands, a territory governed by Mauritius, India has constructed a new airstrip to land surveillance aircraft, in large part to track Chinese activity. Meanwhile, Diego Garcia, another island Mauritius has sovereignty over, has proved strategic for US and UK military power, with a base there since the 1970s.
When powers become global, one thing they want to do is kind of spec the globe with military bases to project power internationally. And when you think about that kind of network, it's something that China is starting to set its sights on.
But China is not alone. India's Agalega base signals a shift in its global ambitions too, driven by economic expansion and tensions with China.
India and China have had ties dating back millennia. They had a brief period of friendship in the 1950s, but the two countries fought a border war in 1962, and the relationship honestly has never quite recovered. It's characterized by deep mistrust, a deep sense of insecurity on Delhi's part. And in fact, in 2020, the two countries fought a series of border skirmishes, which resulted in loss of life on both sides. If the dispute between India and China was primarily land-based in the past, now both countries are thinking about how that extends into the maritime domain.
4 of the world's 6 most important maritime choke points are in the Indian Ocean, making it absolutely critical to global trade.
When you think about countries like India and China, the dependency is really quite startling. India relies on the ocean for something like 95% of its international trade, 80% of its energy.
In fact, 40% of the world's offshore petroleum is found in the Indian Ocean, and nearly half of oil products transiting through these choke points are received by India and China.
When Beijing looks at its energy security, its ability to procure oil, for example, it's very heavily dependent on the Middle East, to some extent Africa, and nearly all of that goes through this choke point called the Strait of Malacca.
Blocking any of these routes would have a huge impact on global trade, creating a potential flashpoint for conflict. But China has seemingly been preparing. As part of its global Belt and Road Initiative, it has asserted its regional influence with multi-billion-dollar infrastructure investments across the Indian Ocean.
You can see China's influence in infrastructure, the airport, the dam, the headquarters of the National Radio TV station.
In Mauritius, they've also installed surveillance cameras made by Chinese telecom giant Huawei.
You will find that all these projects are economic projects, which of course are welcomed by these countries.
Alongside its aggressive military buildup in the South China Sea, China is also extending its reach into the Indian Ocean. Chinese warships have been sent on anti-piracy missions and billions funneled into 46 commercial ports, 36 of which can host naval vessels. On Africa's east coast, China built its first military base in Djibouti and is expanding its naval footprint in Cambodia, giving it the potential to project power from both sides of the Indian Ocean.
The rate at which China is building ships, aircraft, missiles, you have actually a dramatic expansion of Chinese military power.
It's a growing concern for Indian policymakers, who know the Indian Ocean is more than just a trade route.
The idea that an external power, and these days it's increasingly Beijing that they're thinking of, could shut that down or somehow hinder it, is a really big threat to India's national security and its hopes of rising.
95% of international trade is maritime trade. It should not be anybody's privilege to have a so-called sphere of influence. That kind of mentality should be gone. This is 21st century.
As China pushes in, the power that has dominated the Indian Ocean for decades is in retreat.
We have more breaking news on this Friday night. Secretary of State Marco Rubio now ordering the U.S. to immediately stop almost all foreign aid and supplies, pending a review.
The U.S. cuts to foreign assistance are like a gift to China. The U.S. had been investing aid in democracy promotion, protecting civil society, health, education, transparent economic development. Now that many of those programs have gone away, it really is allowing China an opportunity to come in and fill the gaps.
While the US still controls more military installations than any other nation, with about 750 across at least 80 countries, President Trump's foreign policy has meant scaling back on global defense commitments. And that puts more pressure on the US base on Diego Garcia to counter China's growing presence.
This is the only base where the U.S. has bombers in the Indo-Pacific region, aside from Guam. And it's an area where countries like India would not want the Chinese to get access and get a hold on.
As a result, India is flexing its military might. Alongside the airstrip in Agalega, it has commissioned a new base on Minicoy Island and opened its first offshore military logistics hub at Duqm Port in Oman. It's also working harder to win hearts and minds around the Indian Ocean.
We are at the main
No, really interesting. Have you ever all thought about the connection between China and India and how again the Indian Ocean is like an M and that area right there it's being just figured out right now as we speak. Even in 2025. Any thoughts? Yeah, literally the Indian Ocean looks like an M right here.
Oh, I never heard of this Strait of Malacca. I did some Google mapping while the video was playing, and it's right where Singapore is. And I never went there, and I don't know. I didn't realize that was a choke point.
Yep. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts? China, India.
I'll share something I thought. You all know that Pamphile worked for Huawei, and he told me that they have those cameras, those Huawei cameras all over China. And he says that when you walk in buildings, it identifies you. Your picture comes on the screen and it says, hi, Pamphile. And people in China are just used to that they're being basically tracked everywhere with these facial recognition cameras from Huawei.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
it's
that's interesting.
here in the US and we're blessed in many ways here in the US.
I don't think they ain't watching you either.
Yeah, it's really spooky. You know, he also
it's
said
built-in lure on its head. It has this little fleshy rod that sticks.
Sorry,
out
again, I'm
of
just
its
playing
mouth,
this in the
which it
background.
wiggles
These
to
are
attract
some
smaller fish
creatures
into
in the
swim
Indian
close
Ocean.
enough to get
what is
stuck.
that?
These are newly discovered creatures in the Indian Ocean.
Look at that. If I seen that, I'd jump out the
pressure
ocean.
would crush most
Oh, that's
creatures,
right.
but they've adapted to
And
survive,
start
moving
running.
slowly and conserving energy in a place where food is pretty discovered. And there
Yeah,
was.
keep going, Alex.
On the same
Wow.
expedition, researchers discovered a
This is
blind
like
eel
2023,
that might be
2024.
one of the strangest animals pulled out of the Indian Ocean. It's a soft-bodied eel with completely gelatinous see-through skin. You can literally see its organs moving inside its body. It's wild to look at. It has no eyes at all because down there where it lives, about 5 kilometers below the surface, there's no light, so vision really isn't much help. Instead, it uses chemical signals and touch to find its way around. And unlike most fish, this eel gives birth to live young instead of laying eggs, which is pretty unusual for deep-sea creatures. Scientists said it was probably
no eggs, that it just gives birth to live young.
Hey.
Look at this.
a brand new species
Carnarvon flapjack octopus.
called however the hell this is pronounced. I'll just go by its nickname, the Carnarvon flapjack octopus, which was officially named in May of 2025 after being pulled up during a 2022 research cruise around Western Australia's Cocos and Carnarvon Canyon marine parks. So these little guys are about 4 centimeters across, not much bigger than a golf ball. They're soft, squishy, almost see-through with bright red tentacles and huge eyes that stand out in the deep darkness. They don't swim like your average octopus. Instead, they sort of pulse through the water and they can flatten themselves to lie right on the sea floor. As you can see, they look kind of like pancakes, hence the name. Not a pancake I'd ever want to eat though. If I saw that on my plate, I'd be a little freaked out. In 2023, researchers working off the coast of Seychelles found 2 guitarfish species that were completely new to science. Guitarfish are weird looking to begin with. They got these flat bodies.
Look at that thing.
It's like a shark.
Fish.
And long snouts. It almost looks like someone mashed a shark and a stingray together. But these 2 new ones stood out
Oh my gosh, look at it.
because they were hanging around coral reef areas much deeper than where most guitarfish usually live. Normally you'd find these guys in shallower sandy spots. Turns out this next story is taking up 2 spots on the list. Deep down off the coast of Kerala, India, scientists recently discovered 2 new species of deep-sea eels. These ones live in the dark, crushing depths of the ocean. There's barely any light down there. One of the species belongs to a family of eel which hadn't been reported from Indian waters before. Both eels are long, thin, kind of creepy looking. They're a bit pale, sort of like me. They were found during deep sea surveys looking for unknown ocean creatures. What's cool is how these eels survive down there. They've adapted to extreme cold and pressure, and their bodies are built for slipping through
Gosh, look at them going in and out the sand.
tight spaces in the seabed. Unlike shallow water eels, these deep sea versions probably feed on tiny crustaceans or leftover scraps that the coelacanth is a living fossil.
Oh, coelacanth. Oh yeah, I love these or coelacanths, these ancient fish.
Fish that's been around for over 400 million years, practically unchanged. But what I'm talking about today is a relatively recent discovery, first identified off the coast of Sulawesi in Indonesia in the early 90s. Unlike its famous cousin found near Africa, the Indonesian coelacanth lives in deep underwater caves and volcanic slopes in the Indonesian archipelago. These fish are huge, sometimes reaching over 6 feet long, and have weird lobed fins that look more like limbs than typical fish fins. That's part of what makes them so interesting for scientists. They give them clues about how fish might have evolved into the first land animals. Coelacanths are nocturnal, spend most of the day hiding in caves.
Look at all the different colors.
Look at that though.
October of
It's like they have 2 arms and
scientists
2
off
legs.
Madagascar Ridge
That is
identified
interesting.
I know, right? This one's brown longanese skate.
a brand new
Madagascar.
skate species they're calling the brown long-nosed skate. So these things can grow over
I've never heard
70
of a skate
centimeters
before.
long. They found 8 of them living way down, about 750 to 1,050 meters deep, swimming around one of the underwater mountains out there. What's pretty interesting is this skate might only live in that one specific area. That's not unusual for deep sea creatures, but it does make them pretty easy to miss and pretty easy to wipe out from fishing. Skates like this are slow growers. They don't reproduce quickly, and they tend to stick to the same places. The problem is, bottom trawlers have already been active in parts of this region, and if fishing pushes into the skate's territory, it could be in serious trouble. In late 2024, researchers exploring deep reef zones off the Maldives found a brand new species of damselfish called Chromis abida. It's a small, pale fish with this soft bluish shimmer to it. It's not the kind of thing that jumps out at you underwater. It blends in so well, which is probably why nobody noticed it until now. The fish was found hanging around mesophotic reefs, which are deep parts of the ocean where some sunlight still reaches, but not nearly as much as shallow reefs. Of course, they're also deeper than most people dive, usually about 100 to 150 meters down. These reef zones don't get a lot of attention, but they're packed with life. Scientists in and out of cracks in the reef and hiding near sponges, staying away from predators. But the fact that such a common fish went unnoticed this long really makes you wonder how many other creatures are living down there, totally off ones. And scientists just recently identified a new species of shark called Etmopteris brose, or Barry's lantern shark. It was discovered by shark expert Dr. David Ebert and his team. This new species is part of a shark group called Etmopteris, which is actually one of the most diverse shark groups in the world, with around 42 different species known so far. This one lives way down in the Indian Ocean, off the west coast of South Africa, down around southern Mozambique, and near the Madagascar Ridge. They live anywhere from 480 meters to 1,200 meters, or about 1,570 to 3,940 feet for other species. It looks very similar to other sharks in its family, but what sets it apart is its skin and markings. Its body is covered in something called dermal denticles. So these are tiny tooth-like scales that protect its body. On this shark, the denticles are especially thick and packed tightly around the base of its dorsal fin. It also has a cool setup on the underside of its snout, a patch of tiny receptors called ampullae. These are sensitive to electric fields and help the shark detect prey. Think of it as a kind of sixth sense, super handy when hunting in total darkness. When it comes to color, Barry's lantern shark has a more subtle look than some other sharks. Instead of a sharp line dividing its darker top and lighter belly, the colors kind of blend together more smoothly. It's mostly all dark. This probably helps it blend in better in the deep water. I've been your host.
Barry's lantern shark.
Wow, that was great, Alex.
This is what the weirdest shark I've ever seen.
What are those little spiny things? So that means you can't bite down on it?
Oh, it said it was covered in those dermal dentures, so there's basically like little small teeth all around on the underside, I guess. Wow. Isn't the Indian Ocean amazing?
Mm-hmm.
I learned so much from these calls, Alex. It's unbelievable. I feel like I'm getting smart.
I love the pancake flapjack octopus. That's adorable. Literally looks like a pancake. This octopus is crazy right here. Look at those tentacles. It
Mhm.
looks yeah, it looks almost good enough to eat. Eelfish, look, but you could see its whole body through it. Like it's so see-through. Eel. And the first one, the batfish. That was the funniest.
That is crazy looking. It looks like a human face.
It does.
Thanks, Keith.
Oh yes. So today we learned about a little bit of India and China. Today we learned about some of the
It was a great
creatures.
birthday for Pam.
Oh, whose birthday is it?
Was that Ron?
Thank you so much. No, it's okay. We learned about some history 20 years ago, about the tsunami. We learned about the dipole in the Indian Ocean and a lot of different facts, everything from Marco Polo to craters to the Red Sea to everything in between.
Well, Alex, I gotta go get some Centrum.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining. We have module 2 coming up in a bit, but Lou and seniors, I hope you all learned a lot and look forward to our next session next week on another ocean. So thank you so much, Lou, and thank you.
Right. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Great
everybody.
session.
Thanks you.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.